Where you go, I will go. Where you lie, I will lie. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. The story of Naomi and Ruth enshrines loyalty and devotion. The nation of Judah, which includes Jerusalem and Bethlehem, is Naomi's homeland. Ruth comes from Moab, which lies across the Dead Sea from Judah in modern-day Jordan. At the time this story takes place, Judah and Moab are at peace. Though more times than not in the biblical narrative, Judah and Moab are the bitterest enemies. And the audience for which the book of Ruth was composed would have known that this dedicated, trustworthy woman, held up as an example for us all, came from a long-time foe. The Hebrew Scriptures teach so much. And not only did Ruth come from a usually hostile nation, but you see, Ruth is the great-grandmother of King David, matriarch of the one who first makes Judah a powerful nation and a force to be reckoned with. Judah, the nation, and Judaism, the faith, both hail the glory of the reign of King David, and in doing so, they also acclaim their long-sworn enemy, Moab. So Ruth goes with Naomi to a land she has never seen, to a people who had often called her enemy. How many of us would follow our mothers-in-law, I wonder? I promise not to go there today. But imagine the trust Ruth held in her heart, the love. At most, she had only known Naomi for 10 years. And so many resentments last long, don't they, Mom? Consider the tensions roiling that part of the world today. Many of today's combatants in Palestine trace the origin of their conflict back decades, centuries, and yes, millennia. It's a radical act of trust for a woman in that era to leave her homeland and family to follow someone, even a mother-in-law, to a place from where the once and future enemy hailed. Ruth is a paragon of loyalty and trust. The word trust implies not just principle, but sentiment. The English verb trust comes from the Old Norse, treysta, to rely on, to make strong and feel secure. And this offers a paradox. We need to know, on what can I rely? How can I trust someone with precious things like my children, my ideas, my heart? And yet the word trust has baked into its meaning also to make strong. So this implies trust is prerequisite for strength and peace of mind, and thus our paradox. We must employ the very thing we need, trust. On whom or what can we rely? So we can feel safe and know we can trust. This spiritual discipline, like most of them, requires faith and hope and asks us to trust at first, to begin and to lead with trust. When we trust, it is almost always a gamble, yes? How do we know? Really, we don't. To trust is to make a guess, follow a sign, believe what we want or need to believe. It is always an act of faith. And of course, the more our trust has been broken, the more we crave proof of trustworthiness the next time. But in the end, trust is a hunch, is it not? an inclination, a feeling that moves us to trust. As Ernest Hemingway teaches, the best way to know if someone is trustworthy is to trust them. Trust is the currency of all meaningful relationship, including congregational life. People often ask ministers questions about trust, usually in the context of relationships that have disappointed, grown distant, or worse. People rightly wonder, how do I maintain this friendship or this marriage? They ponder, can I ever trust again? And this opens that paradox into which we all must sometimes journey. It is not my place to tell folks to make themselves vulnerable. Yet the truth remains that human life thrives best with deep relationship, and they are enlivened only by trust. Allow me to share times when my trust was rocked. My first marriage ended with my ability to trust shredded. Mostly, I no longer trusted myself to judge if someone deserved my intimacy and confidence. I stopped trusting my ability to believe my own intuition and reason. If I couldn't know the truth about the person with whom I was closest, what truths could I know? I no longer trusted I could understand myself or my world. I had not yet heard Maya Angelou sing, "Have enough courage to trust love one more time and always one more time." Somehow, a gift of grace kissed my soul, and I found ways to love again, to know again, to trust again. Another time that rocked my trust is a little sillier. It was the time I got suspended from high school for wearing a t-shirt. True story, we were told not to wear this particular t-shirt. But my parents refused to stand up for me. My t-shirt simply said Rush, which was my favorite band at the time. Yes, I was one of those boys. My parents, you see, trusted authority figures more than their son, in my estimation. My father was yelling at me, and my mom was crying. And I said to my mom, "You bought me this shirt." They knew Rush was a band. They had just bought me the most recent Rush album, Farewell to Kings, for Christmas. It took me a decade to really trust my parents again. But of course, the moments that eat at me the most, in my honesty, are those times when I failed to be trustworthy. Like the time I neglected to do my part in a group project as an undergrad, and everyone in my group failed. Or the time I failed to show up to defend a bullied friend. Yes, we were outnumbered, but I had promised. There were many more times. We all transgress. And I learned maturity includes understanding trust as a two-way street. Entrepreneur and blogger Seth Godin speaks of trust as part of an honor code, claiming, "An honor code is the simple expectation that we trust you, that you will call out your own faults, and that you act honorably even when you know no one is watching." Right? And for me, this resembles the social contract, Rousseau's notion that in order for society to function well, we must all follow somewhat similar rules. So there are things in society that I believe we should trust one another to do. Stop at stop signs. allow people to park safely, give the right-of-way to pedestrians, not jump red lights with the left turn. It would be nice to trust our government to not steal money from the poor or judges not to lock people up for nothing. The social contract asks us to trust that the police won't knowingly arrest the innocent, to trust that they won't separate children from their families no matter where they're born. And I see some of you shaking your heads. Has something happened to our ability to trust our social contract? To expect trust to be upheld? Now, someone in my social situation, white, educated, able-bodied, hetero male, if I see cracks in the public trust, I can't imagine how people from historically marginalized communities must feel. I imagine those not white, educated, able-bodied, hetero male find it tough to trust our social contract these days. The founding of our nation had a document that deemed African Americans 3/5 of a person, for goodness sake. Trust. Trust the Bureau of Indian Affairs when they've never honored a single treaty they signed. Trust by Japanese Americans after World War II internment camps. Trust from the Chinese after the Chinese Exclusion Act being driven out of every place they settled. Perhaps we are finding these things never really deserved our trust. Yes, these systems should serve us. We must demand their accountability, but ultimate trust. Perhaps with government we should bring up a phrase from the 1980s, trust but verify. You remember that one? But perhaps we should be aiming at some higher authority. Perhaps our ultimate trust is owed to the divine, to the God of our understanding, the power that brings everything into being, the source of love and truth, the wellspring of beloved community, that which deserves our most sincere devotion should also deserve our trust. Now, I'm not saying we all need to be theists. I am comfortable, however, calling that in which I place my trust God, even though nearly every major faith leader I've ever met would not recognize it as God. Most of the world calls me an atheist. But still, the experience of that which thoroughly transcends me yet somehow shines in all human hearts tells me there is something beyond my knowing and power and control. I have felt it move through me. I have seen it reflected in all of your eyes. I have watched it bring diverse peoples together to heal what no single person ever could have. I have witnessed it carve stones of hope out of mountains of despair. I have watched it help elect a black president. I have imbibed its fragrance across the morning dew. I believe we are not merely collections of chemicals, dust, and electrons. Something so much more has brought all of this into being. I know not what it is, but I see its fruits and I feel its love. I don't believe it's a person. It is not like me, even if it enlivens me. I doubt it can hear or smell or sing or be contained in words. But I trust that it is love incarnate, and thereby it cannot hate, so neither should I. In response, I hope I simply say, hallelujah, praises be. The divine, whatever it is so much greater than anything we can imagine, because it is everything that could be imagined, and so much more. It is immeasurable. It does not live somewhere. It simply exists between, within, and among us. It makes us aware of existence through the work it challenges and rewards us for doing. I trust it. I know it will make us safe and secure. I know we can rely on it because I have trusted it and it has come to my rescue time and time again. Not because I deserved it, but because I am just one iota of its expression of love. I also trust that I can understand the divine fruits. Love, compassion, generosity, kindness are its hallmarks. Defending the weak and denouncing the wicked are its calling cards. Protecting those threatened by bullies, stormtroopers, and the greedy are its charge to us. Sitting quietly, leaving our opinions and agenda at the door while being fully present to the one in front of us, the one who needs us most right now, in spite of our to-do list. This is how we walk in honor of this divinity and return its trust. And though I fall short ever so often, still, I try to rise, to love again, and trust again. The root of our trust lies in that depth from which all life and love come. That which guides me as I stumble through this life blindly, as we saw in the Time for All Ages. Intuition, divine. Revelation, divine. Reason, definitely divine. Innovation, divine. Love, divine. Beloved community, divine. Listening, humility. There's nothing that we do worthy of our best selves that does not partake of divinity somehow, however you define divinity. Whatever builds, nurtures, cares, loves, protects, reveals, innovates, dances, composes. Divine. That is our ultimate concern, our ground of being, and for me, what I comfortably and proudly call God. I know this rose will open. This is not a song just of hope, but of trust. Roses are made to be open and fragrant. Fears burn away when we recall the divine source of our being. Our souls exist to unfurl their wings and soar. So they shall. Our lives offer us chances to honor the very thing that gives us life. This is the great divine paradox of living. We live to give our lives in service, to live tales of love, protection, beauty, honor, compassion, and justice, lives that bank on trust. Because trust is the currency of relationship and community. In congregational life, our currency is not money, though we need money to maintain this hallowed institution. More about that next week. In congregational life, our currency is not the stuff we acquire or the things we do. Our currency is trust. So as we live into our mission and vision, the only way we achieve the greatness that each of your souls promises is through trust. We build and maintain that trust in lots of ways, through things like policies and evaluations and clear guidelines that give flesh to why we should trust one another, whether it's among congregants or leaders and staff. And finally, in the short time that Reverend Anya and I have been here, you have shown us that you deserve every ounce of trust that we can summon. As a group, you are the most devoted, generous, loving people I have ever known. So here's my trust. Will you give me yours? Let us live into the promise of this place and dream what an amazing, trustworthy community we can compose.